be here now. And those three words really resonated with me, but it sort of took me 40 years to kind of have it really register, because as I got older and the more I travel, the more I appreciate slow travel and being here now. And that's where mindful and intentional travel comes in. I say travel deep, not wide.
You're listening to Brainwork Framework, a business and marketing podcast, brought to you by focus-biz.com.
Welcome back to another episode. With us today is Ralph Velasco. He is the chief drifter at Continental Drifter Experiences, also made famous and know him on YouTube as the Continental Drifter. Make sure to check him out. Really excited to chat with him today. Ralph, thanks so much for joining us. How are you today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me along.
Absolutely. So the Continental Drifter, how did this come about? What was your journey? What were you doing before? And how did that lead you into what you're doing today?
Yeah, it might be easier to tell you what I didn't do before this, but no, I've always been a traveler. I've enjoyed traveling internationally on my own or with like other organizations, as opposed to like with family and things like that, since I was about 15. And I studied for a summer in Spain. Next year, I was a volunteer in Peru for a summer. The next year, I volunteered in Venezuela. And the next summer, I studied in Mexico City, Spanish language. So I've been a traveler since fairly young and got hooked from the start. Always enjoyed photography. And so I always say it only took me 45 years to figure out what to do with my life. Most people never do, so I guess I'm lucky in that sense. But I was kind of a late bloomer, and I had several restaurants I've owned. I grew up in the restaurant industry, so I grew up in an entrepreneurial family where I saw my parents working very hard to run their own business. After I sold my first restaurant, I bought a round the world ticket, and I traveled around the world for 5 months by myself. And that was one of the great experiences of my life, doing that at age 24. That was a long time ago, before the internet, social media, cell phones, practically before the wheel. And wonderful experience, but a very different way of traveling back then. And after that, gosh, most recent, I was a marketing director for a division of a Fortune 500 company. Right before that, I moved back to Mexico City, and I was getting my master's in international business administration there. So I figured, what better way to get an MBA than internationally, because we had an international focus. So I lived in Mexico City, moved back to San Diego, or moved to San Diego, where the school was based, and finished up my degree there, and ended up being in Southern California for about 15 years total. Moved back to Chicago in 99, and in 2001, I opened up my second restaurant in downtown Chicago, and I opened up about 5 months before. So that was like May of 2001, and then we all know what happened in September 2001. And here I was with a new business in downtown Chicago. Everyone thought that we were going to be next with the terrorist attacks. So that was tough. It was tough to be in business at that time. But eventually I had that restaurant from 2001, and this was what I would call the dawn of digital photography. It was the early 2000s. And so, at least consumer-wise, I started getting introduced to it. I bought my first Kodak EasyShare 1 megapixel camera. And I said, I bet there'd be a market for people to help people to learn how to use these new digital devices. And so I was getting to the end of my initial 3-year lease, where I had to decide, was I going to sign for another 5 years, or was I going to sell the business? And it was tough going at that time. And I had this idea for creating some photo walking tours in the city where I could teach people how to use those cameras. And so I had to decide, was I going to sell, or was I going to sign that additional 5 years? So I literally took a yellow pad and I said, on the left side, what do I dislike about the restaurant industry? Number one, I have employees. I've got a very expensive space in the city that I got, that rent comes every month, no matter how good business is or not. And then I came home smelling like a French fry every night. I was selling something to people that they could consume and could potentially make them sick. So these negatives, and then on the right side, I wrote the positives. I said, I want to work for myself. I don't want employees. I want to work from wherever my laptop is. I want to take a shower before work, not after. And so all these things led me to think maybe I could create a service teaching people how to use their new digital devices. And then to make a long story a little bit longer, I eventually decided that, okay, I was going to do that. I sold the business. I said, I'm going to create this other side hustle of organizing photo walking tours. But then I realized Chicago, the best place to do that because the weather, not great, maybe 6, 7, 8 months out of the year. I still think it gets a bad rap, but you're a little bit north of me in Milwaukee. So we live in two great cities, but people think that it's just cold all the time.
It's,
But
it's
that's
true,
not,
though. It's
well,
sometimes.
moved out to California, back out to California. I'd already lived there, like I said, when I was in San Diego. So I moved back out to California, started working for a friend of mine as a financial advisor. He had a business, he was a broker. So he hired me, said, why don't you get your licenses, come on out here and work for me. So I'm like, okay, that's a way to get out there. And then I could create this business from scratch out there. So that's what I did. And just to fast forward a little bit, came September 8th. We all know what happened. We had September, not a good month. We had the financial crisis. And here I am, a newbie financial advisor. And the world was almost coming to an end at that time. And here I am trying to build that business, very difficult. So that was the next day was the day that I said I want full-time, being a full-time tour organizer and professional travel photographer. And that's what I've done for the past 16 years now.
Wow, that's an incredible. Sounds like quite a journey to go on that somehow these opportunities present themselves to you, but it was up to you to make that decision if you wanted to go forward or not. And someone who worked myself in the restaurant industry, I can attest to smelling like a deep fryer and French fries and having a shower after you go home. It never really leaves your clothes, unfortunately. You just have
No,
your set of work clothes.
that's right.
But good on you for finding that opportunity, trying to provide value through these walking tours, teaching them how to use these tools. And then fast forward today, now you're kind of living a very enjoyable life. Some would say being able to travel, but unfortunately, it's not all playtime. You're also working, you're creating content. So that's kind of at the front of your mind. So now, how's everything going with the content creation for YouTube, kind of building this out? Are you kind of gearing your experience to fit your content, or are you just kind of filming your enjoyment and then the content gets created from that?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's probably a little bit of both, but more what I like to do is film what I'm already doing on my trips and creating videos that give people a good idea for what I do and what my, days are like when I'm traveling. I love to videotape particular experiences that I'm having. Maybe it's something like riding La Bruja in Colombia, which is a really interesting sort of cross between a motorcycle and a hand cart on rails, if you could picture that. Just different things like that. Food experiences. I love to incorporate food into my trips because it's such a big part of travel anyway. And I come from that background, so I'm interested in it and my clients are interested. So any of those, but then I also will put together these experiences into one video, perhaps, that maybe gives an overview of a particular trip of mine.
And that's really cool. I think it opens up for the audience an opportunity to visit a place that they may not be able to financially afford to go to, or are just curious about visiting in the future. They get to see that real hands-on experience, so they can try the food, live those experiences similar to yours, and kind of customize that to themselves.
For sure. Yeah. I often hear that people are living vicariously through me, which is nice that I can provide that for them.
It is excellent. So now you have a new book series coming out. Do you mind going more into detail about that?
Of course, I'll tell you the backstory of how this series came about, and it's called the Mindful and Intentional Traveler series. Back on that trip in Peru, I told you I was 16 years old in high school, and I traveled to Peru with my high school on a trip, like a social justice trip. There was 9 students and 4 teachers slash priests. I went to an all boys high school. And we were down there, 9 teenage boys, as you can imagine. We started moaning and groaning about Oh, we miss our beds at home. We miss our mother's cooking and our friends and family and stuff. So after about a week or two, one of the priests sat us down. He says, guys, you know what? You've got the most incredible life opportunity of a lifetime to be here in Peru, on literally on the other side of the world, experiencing, seeing this way of life. Be here now. And those three words really resonated with me, but it sort of took me 40 years to kind of have it really register, because as I got older and the more I travel, the more I appreciate slow travel and being here now. And that's where mindful and intentional travel comes in. It means to be present in a nutshell. And so, as a photographer, especially, I'm the worst at this because I go to these amazing places and I see them through the viewfinder of a camera. And I would come home and I'd say, man, I know I was there. I got the passport stamps, the receipts, the memories, and the photographs, but was I there mentally? Or did I just see that place through the viewfinder of a camera? So the more as I age, I'm appreciating slow travel. I think we slow down. Not that I feel like I'm really slowing down, but we've done some things. So perhaps we've already done those things and now we can maybe do less or other things. And I just like to spread out the experience. And I say travel deep, not wide. And I love to do a deeper dive into a place than trying to see a little bit of a whole region or country. Now my trips are focusing more on one, maybe two locations in a destination, and we do a deeper dive into those instead of hitting the Rome, Florence, Venice typical tourist track. We get off that track and have other experiences that are complementary to that. And my clients love it.
That is wonderful. So do you offer a service where you're kind of their guide and you offer them consulting to improve their travel experience?
Well, I'm not sure if you realize I organize and lead these tours and I'm on every trip. So I lead every trip. I'm there. I do some custom tour organizing for small groups, families, organizations that want to do their own thing. They can't travel on my dates. They don't necessarily need me on the trip. So that I'm doing more and more of, but typically I'm on a trip with a group. So oftentimes they're coming on the trip because they know me. They've seen me perhaps on my YouTube channel or on podcasts, but I get over 50% repeat rate of people coming back onto my trips. So at least 5 out of 10 people have traveled with me before, but some trips it's 9 out of 9 or more. So I think that says a lot. I've got all 5-star reviews over 16 years, nothing but 5-star reviews for all my trips. So I like nothing more than to share these places with my clients and to see the place through their eyes. So I am trying to pass along this idea of more mindful and intentional travel because I don't think a lot of people think about it, but as we get older, we start to think about these things, and it's pretty interesting.
That is so exciting. So when you're working with your group, what does that process usually look like? These all pre-planned trips by you? Do they have any input, or are you just kind of leading and guiding them throughout the entire experience, or do you kind of throw in a wild card every now and again and say, hey, you know what? I think we're going to do this instead.
Yeah, I do definitely like to do that and try to keep some cards in my pocket once in a while or up my sleeve for guests to give them a little surprise. But no, they're mostly planned, but I do about a half day scheduled, half day free. So we handle everything from soup to nuts, from picking you up at the airport in the destination to dropping you off at the end. With my guidance, people arrange their own flights from and to the destination. So I help them with that, but they arrange it because people are coming from all over the world. They've got different airlines they want to use, timing, etc. So we handle pretty much everything else, but I also like to provide a half day of scheduled activities and a half day of free time. So that's a really nice hybrid. Those trips where everything's scheduled for you 24/7 for 14 days straight makes me tired just thinking about it. let alone having to lead 10 or 12 of those kinds of trips a year, which is what I do. So it gives me a little downtime too, which typically means that I just have time to do my other work. Because when I'm on a trip, I'm really focused on that trip, but I'm still planning 5 or 6 trips in advance or breaking down from a couple trips that just finished. So there's always something to do. But when I'm on the trip, obviously that's my priority. Typical day might look like somewhat early breakfast, 7:30. Then we're out by 8:30, 9 o'clock. I like to get out before the heat of the day, the tourist crowds, better light, things like that. We might even get out earlier, but we're not like every sunrise or sunset and things like that. People can choose to do that, which is great. But my tours used to be more focused on photography and teaching people travel photography. I've kind of backed off that a little bit over the years as smartphone photography becomes more popular, and those hardcore photo workshops are very tough to run for what I just said. It's every sunrise, sunset, imagery views, photo walks, one-on-ones, and that's tough to do for the tour leader. So I got to think of myself more than anything because I have to keep doing this. Think of my own well-being too.
Absolutely. And I love that balance between the half day of planned activities and the half free day. Just finds that nice balance between enjoying some new experiences being planned and then just that spontaneity that comes with it. I'm kind of curious, what was Antarctica like? It seems like it's a very unique continent and maybe not much to do there, or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's some exciting stuff in Antarctica. What is that like?
Yeah, I figured out that 0.005% of the world's population has ever been to Antarctica. So it's a pretty exclusive place. And it's a place that I had always wanted to go to. I mean, it's the seventh continent. It's the place that is the most off the beaten path, I imagine. So I finally found a tour operator that flies down there. I wasn't interested in doing the Drake Passage, sailing the Drake Passage, even on a big ship, because it can be notoriously rough. There's 3 oceans that come together there. They don't like each other, and you can get 100-foot waves. And I'm a sailor and I race sailboats, but I have no interest in doing that. One of the clients on my last trip, it was his second attempt to get to Antarctica because his first attempt, someone died on the ship going down from Argentina to the continent. They must have hit some rogue waves and he got slammed against the side of the ship somehow and had a head injury. So that was terrible. So he went down. He said, like, okay, I'm flying down this time. And so he came with us. So we fly down in less than 2 hours. It's on a proper airplane, 75-seater. You've got lunch on the way, flight attendants, everything. It's great. But then you get down there, you land on a sort of a research station type airstrip, and then they take you to the shore where the Zodiacs pick us up. You could see our ship sitting offshore. It's the smallest ship in the industry, so 67 passengers and probably maybe another 20 or 30 crew. But it's a proper ship. I mean, this was a former icebreaker from Greenland. So beautiful ship and allows us to get into any drop-off point that we want because there's a treaty down there that only 100 people or less can ever get off on the shore at one point, at one time, at any one landing point. So with the ship where there's only 67 clients, the whole ship can get off. I don't know what the maximum ship is, but I think there's ships with 1,000 people. They have to do it in stages or not get off at all or whatever. So kind of interesting. Anyway, this was absolutely fantastic. And you really know how off the beaten path you are and how remote you are because of the silence, the fact that you don't see any airplane contrails or cell towers or fences or any man-made structures. And it's just wildlife. And landscapes and glaciers, beautiful icebergs, absolutely incredible. So it was quite the destination. I mean, I love animals, I love wildlife, but safaris and Antarctica and seeing the animals wasn't that high on my list, to be honest. But man, was I happy that I got there. And I've got a trip to Tanzania and Zanzibar coming up this summer for an actual safari, which I've never been on.
Very nice. That is so cool. For anyone who is interested in getting in touch with you and finding you online, where should they go?
You could go to continentaldrifter.co. That's the hub for everything. You see all my trips that are coming up in the future there, the podcasts I've been on, links to my YouTube channel, my books, merchandise, everything is there.
Excellent. And we'll have the links available down in the show notes and the description so you can get connected with Ralph here. Ralph, I have one follow-up question I wanted to ask. If there is just literally one place that you would recommend for others to go visit, like, hey, you have to at least try this once. And I know you haven't seen it all yet, but as of today, where would you recommend people to at least try once?
Well, Spain is probably my favorite country, and it's the one I've been to the most, I would imagine, and spent the most time there. I speak the language. I just love the culture, the food, the people, everything about Spain. And I think it's a really good sort of dipping your toes into international travel. If you haven't traveled, it's a place that is fairly easy to travel. It's got a great tourist infrastructure. A lot of the people speak English, so you'll get around no problem, even if you don't speak Spanish. But it's still sort of exotic enough that, and it's a big country with great transportation. Can't recommend Spain enough. And the food, oh, the food.
You had me at everything you listed already. That sounds like a fantastic place. Ralph, we appreciate you coming on and sharing your wisdom, tips, and tricks with us. Really appreciate hearing about your journey. Thank you again. Excited to look forward to all of the places that you're going to visit and travel and share on your YouTube channel. Very excited for it. Thank you.
I appreciate your having me on. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you, Ralph.